Lieutenant Valerie Chen knew she was screwed the moment Captain Drayson's shuttle disappeared into Nexus 7's copper-tinted atmosphere, leaving nothing but exhaust trails and betrayal hanging in the alien air. "Oh, sure. We'll wait for you, Lieutenant." "Chen?" she mimicked, her voice a pitch-perfect rendition of Drayson's gravelly baritone. "Just collect your samples and be back in 2 hours. Standard procedure." She kicked a fluorescent purple stone, watching it tumble down the rust-colored hillside. "Guess standard procedure now includes abandoning your xenobiologist on planets classified as extremely hostile to human life. Must have missed that section in the handbook." The truth was painfully obvious. The mercenary crew had never intended to bring her back. Valerie was expendable, just another military scientist contracted to their exploratory vessel when the actual military couldn't be bothered. Her expertise in xenobiology made her valuable for the initial survey, but her tendency to ask questions about their not-quite-legal sample collection made her a liability. Valerie checked her equipment: portable atmospheric analyzer, specimen, collection kit, basic survival pack, sidearm with exactly 2 charge packs, and a communicator that was currently picking up exactly nothing. She laughed, the sound echoing strangely in Nexus 7's slightly denser atmosphere. Perfect. Just perfect. Stranded on a planet where literally everything has evolved specifically to kill everything else. She glanced at the setting primary sun, calculating she had maybe 2 hours before the temperature dropped to hypothermia levels. And now I get to find out if my survival training was worth anything beyond checking boxes for promotion. A distant howl echoed across the valley, a sound no human vocal cord could produce. Valerie instinctively dropped to a crouch, her hand moving to her sidearm. Right. And that would be the local welcoming committee, she muttered, trying to steady her breathing. Probably coming to offer me tea and directions to the nearest spaceport. As the alien twilight deepened, casting long shadows across the bizarre landscape of spiral-shaped rock formations and vegetation that seemed to pulse with internal light, Lieutenant Valerie Chen accepted the reality of her situation. They had left her to die, and on Nexus 7, death had 1,000 hungry faces. By the time both suns had risen, oh yes, Nexus 7 had 2 of them. Because one scorching ball of nuclear fusion clearly wasn't enough, Valerie had established 3 priorities: water, shelter, and not becoming something's breakfast. "Let's see what we've got," she muttered, spreading her survival kit across a relatively flat rock. 3 nutrient bars, water purification tabs, emergency thermal blanket, basic first aid. Wow, they really spared no expense. She snorted, holding up a tiny compass. "Because knowing which way is north will definitely save me from whatever made those 3-foot-wide tracks I saw earlier." The military xenobiologist part of her brain, the part that had gotten her into this mess with its endless curiosity, reminded her that her scientific equipment might prove more useful than the pathetic survival kit. Her atmospheric analyzer could detect toxins and identify potential water sources. The specimen collection tools included a laser scalpel that could, in theory, serve as a weapon or tool. Valerie shouldered her pack and began walking, scanning for what she remembered. From survival training, water follows the path of least resistance, so downhill we go, she said to herself, keeping up a running commentary to ward off the panic threatening to overwhelm her. Though on this planet, the water probably dissolves your insides on contact. Wouldn't that be fitting? 3 hours later, she found it. A small stream flowing through a rocky outcropping. The analyzer indicated it contained no immediate toxins, though several minerals registered as unknown. "Cheers," she said, after using a purification tab and taking her first cautious sip. Not bad. Tastes like copper and regret. Near the stream, she discovered a recessed area beneath a rock overhang. Not quite a cave, but enough to provide shelter from the elements and, hopefully, from view of predators. She arranged her thermal blanket and the few supplies she had, creating a rudimentary camp. Her temporary security was shattered by a rustling from a patch of luminescent vegetation nearby. Valerie froze, slowly reaching for her sidearm. From the foliage emerged a creature roughly the size of a large dog, but with 6 spindly legs and a body covered in what appeared to be vibrating filaments. Its head swiveled toward her, revealing multiple compound eyes that glittered like opals. "Don't mind me," Valerie whispered, raising her weapon. "Just another inedible rock. Very bitter. Terrible aftertaste." The creature chirped, taking a step toward her. Valerie fired a warning shot that struck the ground near its front limbs. The sizzle of energy against stone sent the creature scurrying back into the undergrowth. "And that," she announced to the empty air, "was one of 16 shots I have left. Great. At this rate, I'll be defenseless by day 3. She slumped against the rock wall. "All that tactical training and the best I can do is scare off the equivalent of an alien rabbit." As darkness fell again, Valerie arranged thorny vegetation around her shelter's entrance and clutched her weapon to her chest. Sleep came in fitful bursts, interrupted by sounds that evolution had not prepared humans to hear without instinctive dread. By the 5th day, Valerie had established something resembling a routine. Mornings were for water collection and checking her perimeter. Afternoons were spent cataloging the bizarre flora and cautiously observing the smaller fauna from a distance. Evenings were for reinforcing her shelter and trying not to think about the dwindling ration bars. She was recording observations about a particularly interesting fungus-like growth when she first felt it. That primordial sense of being watched by something big, something hungry. "Hello?" she called out, immediately regretting giving away her position. "Great, Chen. Announce yourself to the apex predator. That's definitely how you survive in the wild." But nothing appeared, just that persistent feeling of eyes tracking her every move. That night, she heard it. A low rumbling sound that seemed to vibrate through the ground itself. Not quite a growl, not quite a purr. Something altogether alien. Valerie clutched her sidearm, its familiar weight providing little comfort against whatever could make such a sound. "Please be herbivorous," she whispered, preferably shy and easily startled by loud noises. Morning revealed massive tracks around her camp, 3-toed impressions the size of dinner plates, pressed deep into the soil. Whatever had left, them had circled her shelter multiple times. "So much for my expert camouflage skills," she muttered, examining the tracks. "Might as well have put up a neon sign saying all-you-can-eat human buffet." She spotted it later that day, while collecting water. At first, she thought it was a trick of light on the rocky terrain, a shadow moving incorrectly. Then, the shadow detached itself from the landscape, revealing a creature that defied easy description. It stood nearly 3 meters tall at the shoulder, its 6 powerful limbs ending in claws like obsidian daggers. Its elongated head bore multiple sensory pits along a ridge of what appeared to be metallic scales. But most disturbing was its skin, a constantly shifting pattern that seemed to absorb and reflect the colors around it, not quite invisibility, but a perfect adaptive camouflage. "Oh," Valerie breathed, frozen in place. "You're magnificent." The creature, which Valerie's mind immediately classified as a shadow fang for its shifting appearance and prominent teeth, tilted its head at the sound of her voice. One step forward with its front limbs caused Valerie to stumble backward, tripping over her own feet. The massive predator followed, unhurried, confident in its position at the top of the food chain. It cornered her against the rocks near her, shelter, lowering its head to her level. Valerie could see her reflection in its obsidian eyes. Multiple reflections, actually, as if its eyes contained facets like an insect's. "Nice apex predator," she said, voice shaking as she slowly reached for her pack. "I'm probably poisonous to you. Terrible for your digestion, full of bones and bitterness." Her trembling fingers found her last ration bar. With no other options, she unwrapped it and tossed it several meters to the side. The shadow fang's head swiveled to track the object, nostrils flaring. To Valerie's astonishment, it moved toward the ration bar, sniffed it cautiously, then delicately picked it up with appendages that extended from beneath its jaw. Appendages she hadn't noticed before, more dexterous than its massive claws. Idai consumed the ration bar, made a sound like stones grinding together, then turned and melted back into the landscape, leaving Valerie breathless and bewildered. That, she said to herself once she could breathe again, was either the luckiest moment of my life or the beginning of something even stranger. The Shadow Fang returned the next day and the day after that. Each time, Valerie observed it from what she hoped was a safe distance, recording its behavior with the scientific detachment that had defined her career. Except there was nothing detached about watching a predator that could tear you apart, deciding whether you were prey, plaything, or something else entirely. "You're way too intelligent for a typical apex predator," she said, watching as the creature investigated the makeshift tools she'd crafted. "Those manipulator appendages, the problem-solving capability. What are you really?" Her xenobiologist training suggested an experiment. She left a small food portion on a flat rock near her camp, then retreated to watch from hiding. The Shadow Fang appeared with surprising stealth for such a large creature, examined the offering, and consumed it without destroying the arrangement around it. "Hypothesis confirmed," Valerie muttered into her recorder. "Subject shows awareness of artificial constructs and respects them as deliberate arrangements rather than obstacles to food." The next day, she left a simple puzzle, food wrapped in leaves secured with vines. She watched, astonished, as the Shadow Fang methodically unwrapped the package, using those dexterous secondary appendages with precision. "This is insane," she whispered. "You're operating at near primate intelligence levels. The xenobiologists back home would lose their minds." On the 10th day of this strange dance, Valerie noticed something concerning. The Shadow Fang was moving with a pronounced limp, favoring its rear right limb. As it came closer to retrieve the daily offering, she saw the problem. A deep gash running along its flank, the edges crusted with a substance that glowed faintly in the diminishing light. "You're hurt," she said, forgetting caution and stepping into view. "Something got you good, didn't it? Something even bigger than you?" The thought of a predator that could injure the Shadow Fang sent a chill through her. The creature froze, regarding her with those obsidian eyes. It made no move to flee or attack. Valerie made a decision that her survival instructors would have classified as suicidal. She retrieved her medical kit and slowly approached the wounded predator. "This is without doubt the stupidest thing I've done, and that includes accepting assignment to Drayson's ship," she said conversationally as she inched closer. "But infection is infection, even for alien apex predators, and that wound looks nasty." The Shadow Fang remained still as she approached, its skin patterns shifting more rapidly. Nervousness? Interest? Hunger? Impossible to tell. When she was within arm's reach, Valerie stopped. "I'm going to help you," she said clearly, showing the medical kit. "This might sting, but it'll prevent whatever that glowing stuff is from spreading." Working with trembling hands, she cleaned the wound, applied antibacterial sealing gel, and stepped back. The Shadow Fang examined its treated limb, making that strange grinding stone sound again. "You're welcome," Valerie said. "I'm calling you." Rex, by the way, seemed fitting for the king of this particular jungle. She retreated to her shelter, certain she'd hallucinated the whole encounter. But the next morning, she found a freshly killed creature, something resembling a cross between a lizard and a rabbit, placed carefully at the entrance to her shelter. "Oh, God," she groaned, looking at the offering. Are you bringing me breakfast? That's simultaneously the most touching and horrifying thing that's happened all week." Despite her disgust, hunger won out. Using her tools, she carefully prepared and cooked portions of the alien meat, checking it with her analyzer first to confirm it contained no obvious toxins. As she ate, Rex appeared at the edge of her camp. watching with what Valerie could have sworn was satisfaction. "You know what, Rex?" she said between bites. "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful, terrifying, and extremely unlikely friendship." Rex settled onto the ground, massive head, resting on equally massive paws, keeping a respectful distance, but clearly intent on staying. "Just don't tell the other apex predators," Valerie continued. "It would ruin your reputation to be seen hanging out with the weird alien that has no claws or decent teeth to speak of." Rex made a huffing sound that, in Valerie's increasingly sleep-deprived and isolation-addled mind, sounded remarkably like laughter. 3 weeks into her unwanted residency on Nexus 7, Lieutenant Valerie Chen found herself doing something she'd never anticipated in xenobiology training, attempting to establish a communication protocol with a predator that could swallow her head whole. "Let's try again," she said, holding up her hand, palm outward. "This means stop, stop, not bring me another dead thing or time for a staring contest." Rex tilted her massive head, and yes, Valerie had confirmed the creature was female during a particularly close examination that had nearly given her a heart attack. The Shadow Fang raised one of her manipulator appendages, mimicking the gesture with surprising accuracy. "Good! That's good!" Valerie exclaimed, feeling the absurd pride of a teacher whose student just grasped a difficult concept. "Now this one means danger." She made a quick slashing motion across her throat. Rex watched, then repeated the gesture with one of her primary claws, the movement so fast it created a whisper of displaced air. "Well, that's terrifying," Valerie muttered, "but accurate." Her scientific documentation had grown exponentially. What had begun as survival notes had evolved into the most comprehensive xenobiological study ever conducted on a Class 5 predator species. Valerie had mapped Rex's vocalizations to specific contexts, cataloged her hunting patterns, and even begun classifying what appeared to be distinct emotional states based on skin pattern shifts. "You know, if we ever get off this rock, you're going to make me famous," she told Rex one evening as they shared the campfire, Valerie eating her portion cooked, Rex preferring hers still twitching. "The first documented case of human apex predator symbiosis. They'll have to name a research grant after me." Rex had taken to bringing Valerie gifts almost daily. Most were food, creatures Valerie had never seen before, some so bizarre they defied classification. Others were objects Rex seemed to find interesting, crystalline formations, peculiar plants, once even a piece of metal that appeared to be from a ship crash predating Valerie's arrival by many years. "What am I supposed to do with this?" Valerie had asked, holding up a squirming, tentacled thing with too many eyes. "I can't eat this. I don't even know which end is which." Rex had made that grinding stone sound that Valerie now recognized as amusement. As weeks passed, Valerie made a startling discovery. During a territory patrol with Rex, and wasn't that a concept? Patrolling with a predator instead of running from it. She found what appeared to be an abandoned nest. The massive depression in the ground contained fragments of material similar to Rex's scales. Was this yours?" she asked, pointing to the nest. Rex approached, her skin patterns, shifting to something Valerie had never seen before. Darker, with rippling waves of deep indigo. She made a low keening sound that raised the hair on Valerie's arms. Scanning the surrounding area, Valerie realized there were no other signs of shadow fangs. No tracks, no territorial markings, nothing to suggest a population. "You're alone," she whispered, the realization hitting her with unexpected force. "You're the last one, aren't you?" Rex merely looked at her with those inscrutable obsidian eyes, but somehow Valerie knew she was right. Whatever Rex was, she was the last of her kind, an evolutionary dead end on a planet where evolution had run amok. "Well," Valerie said, sitting down beside the massive predator, "I guess that makes 2 of us." She placed her hand gently on Rex's foreleg. The Shadow Fang didn't pull away. That night, as Valerie recorded her observations, she realized with a start that she was no longer documenting a subject. She was chronicling a friendship, one that defied every natural law and survival instinct, yet somehow made perfect sense on this world where nothing else did. Valerie was recording observations about a particularly bizarre flowering plant, one that appeared to digest small flying creatures that landed on its luminescent petals, when her communicator suddenly crackled to life. After 3 months of silence, the sound was so unexpected, she nearly dropped the device. Resources on. "This godforsaken rock better be worth the fuel it took to get back here," came a voice through the static. A voice she recognized immediately. "Drayson," she whispered, her blood running cold despite the oppressive heat of Nexus 7's dual suns. She adjusted the communicator's frequency, careful to keep it in receive-only mode. No need to announce her survival just yet. Confirmed sightings. Of the primary target species? Another voice, one she didn't recognize. "Our initial survey team documented at least one specimen of what the eggheads are calling a shadow fang," Drayson replied. "Magnificent predator, adaptive camouflage, problem-solving, intelligence, apex position in the food chain. Exactly what our clients at Neurotech Military Solutions are looking for." Valerie's stomach twisted. She knew Neurotech, a private military contractor specializing in weaponized biotech. They had been trying to incorporate alien biological systems into weapons platforms for years, with little ethical oversight and even less concern for the species they harvested. "And Lieutenant Chen?" the other voice asked. A pause. "Unfortunate casualty of our initial survey," Drayson said smoothly. "Wandered too far from the extraction point. Planet like this doesn't take long for the local wildlife to clean up the evidence." Valerie almost laughed at the irony. The local wildlife was currently curled up sleeping at the entrance to her shelter, one enormous paw twitching occasionally as Rex dreamed whatever apex predators dream about. "Setting down in the primary survey zone in 3 hours," Drayson continued. "Prepare the containment units and hunting gear. Remember, they want at least one specimen alive for study. The rest, well, there's a bonus for each confirmed kill." The communication cut off, leaving Valerie in a cold sweat despite the heat. "They're coming back to hunt you," she told Rex, who had awakened and was watching her with those impossibly deep eyes. "And they don't know I'm alive, which means they won't hesitate to shoot me too if I get in their way." Rex made a low rumbling sound that Valerie had come to associate with concern. "I need to think," she muttered, pacing around their shared camp. "They have a ship, they have weapons, they have a team. All I have is my sidearm with half a charge pack left, some basic tools, and a really big, really conspicuous alien friend who's apparently worth a lot of money, dead or alive." She stopped pacing and looked at Rex, who was tracking her movements with focused attention. "But they don't know this terrain like we do," she said slowly, a plan beginning to form. "And they definitely don't know about our arrangement." Over. The next 2 hours, Valerie worked frantically. She set up false trails using Rex's shed scales and her own footprints. She rigged rudimentary alarms using the resonant properties of certain crystalline formations they'd discovered. At key choke points in the surrounding terrain, she placed traps designed to disorient rather than harm, flash bombs made from the bioluminescent flora, noisemakers from hollow plant stems that would alert them to intruders. Rex, seeming to understand the urgency if not the specific threat, followed her lead with uncanny awareness. The massive predator helped move heavy objects into strategic positions and even demonstrated hiding spots Valerie hadn't known existed, crevices and overhangs that somehow concealed even Rex's massive form. "They want to hunt?" Valerie said, grimly as they finished their preparations. "Let's show them what it's like to be the prey for a change." The hunting party moved through the alien landscape with military precision, their exo-armor gleaming dully in the strange light of Nexus 7's. Afternoon. 6 mercenaries, each carrying enough firepower to level a small settlement, followed a trail that Valerie had painstakingly created to lead them away from Rex's actual territory. Like watching toddlers play hide-and-seek, Valerie whispered, from her vantage point. Except the toddlers have plasma rifles and itchy trigger fingers. Rex, camouflaged perfectly against the rocky outcropping beside her, made a soft sound that might have been agreement. The first trap triggered with a satisfying whoosh as one of the mercenaries stepped on a pressure-sensitive plant Valerie had repositioned. A cloud of bioluminescent spores erupted around the group, temporarily blinding their optical sensors and sending them into disarray. "And that's why we always respect the local flora," Valerie murmured, grinning as the mercenaries stumbled about, cursing. They moved to the next position, watching as the disoriented hunters regrouped. Rex slipped silently through terrain that would have been impassable for Valerie, then returned to guide her along safer paths. Their partnership had evolved into something seamless, predator and scientist working in perfect tandem. The comm unit Valerie had salvaged from her original equipment crackled to life. "Something's not right," came Drayson's voice. "These tracks are too obvious. Fan out and sweep the perimeter." "Damn it," Valerie muttered. "He's smarter than I gave him credit for." They retreated deeper into the labyrinthine rock formations as the mercenaries spread out. One hunter came dangerously close to their position, his weapon sweeping back and forth methodically. Rex tensed beside her, skin patterns shifting to match the surrounding rocks so perfectly that even Valerie, inches away, had trouble distinguishing. Where rock ended and Shadowfang began, the hunter passed within 2 meters of their hiding spot before moving on. "That was too close," Valerie breathed once he was gone. "We need to—" A blinding flash of light cut her off as an energy bolt struck the rock beside her head. Valerie ducked, rolling behind cover as more shots followed. "I knew it!" Drayson's voice echoed through the canyon. "Chen's alive! Forget the specimen for now! Take her down!" Plasma fire rained around her position as Valerie scrambled from cover to cover, desperately seeking an escape route. Rex had disappeared, using her. Camouflage to reposition, Valerie hoped, rather than abandoning her. A bolt caught her leg, sending her sprawling onto the hard ground. Pain lanced through her body as the weapon's energy disrupted her nervous system. Drayson approached, weapon leveled at her chest. "Lieutenant Chen, I'm almost impressed you survived this long." His smile was cold. "Don't worry, we'll make sure. Your death is properly recorded this time." As he took aim, a ripple in the air behind him was Valerie's only warning. Rex materialized as if from nowhere, her massive form seeming to assemble itself from the very landscape. Before Drayson could turn, Rex's claws swiped through the air with surgical precision, severing the weapon from his grasp, along with several fingers. His scream echoed through the canyon as he stumbled backward, clutching his maimed hand. Other mercenaries opened fire, but Rex was already moving, her form blurring between visibility and camouflage too quickly for their targeting systems to lock on. Valerie dragged herself to the fallen commander's pack, fingers fumbling for his emergency transmitter. With the last of her strength, she activated it and set it to broadcast on all military emergency frequencies. "This is Lieutenant Valerie Chen, xenobiologist, military ID 7734 Alpha Echo. I am alive on Nexus 7 and declaring a Code Black Science Preservation emergency. Illegal poaching of a critically endangered sentient species in progress, requesting immediate military intervention." As consciousness faded, the last thing she saw was Rex standing protectively over her, challenging anyone to come closer. Valerie awoke to the steady beep of medical monitoring equipment and the familiar antiseptic smell of a military medbay. For one disorienting moment, she thought the entire Nexus 7 experience had been a fever dream. Then she heard the commotion outside. Her room, raised voices, orders being shouted, and a low rumbling sound she recognized immediately. "Rex," she whispered, struggling to sit up despite the pain that lanced through her injured leg. "Where's Rex?" The door slid open to reveal a stern-faced military officer whose insignia marked him as a colonel in the Xenobiological Protection Course. "Lieutenant Chen," he said, relief evident in his voice. "You're awake. I'm Colonel Hargrove. Your distress signal reached one of our patrols. We responded immediately." "The mercenaries?" she asked, apprehended. "Captain Drayson is in custody, facing charges of illegal wildlife trafficking, attempted murder, and violating at least 17 interstellar conservation laws." Hargrove's expression darkened. "But that's not our immediate concern. There's a situation in the cargo bay." Valerie didn't need to ask what the situation was. "You need to take me there, now." 5 minutes later, supported by a hovering medical assist, Valerie entered the shuttle bay to find a tense standoff. A dozen armed soldiers formed a semicircle around Rex, who was backed against the wall, her skin shifting through patterns Valerie recognized as extreme distress. Multiple weapon sights trained on the massive predator. "Hold your fire!" Valerie shouted, pushing through the line of soldiers. "She's not hostile unless threatened." Rex's head swiveled toward her, obsidian eyes fixing on Valerie with unmistakable recognition. The chaotic patterns on her skin immediately began to stabilize. Valerie positioned herself between the soldiers and Rex, arms spread wide. "This creature saved my life, multiple times. She's not just an animal. She's intelligent, communicative, and possibly the last of her species." Colonel Hargrove stepped forward. "Lieutenant, I understand your attachment, but regulations are clear. Apex predators from Class 5 biohazard planets cannot be transported to inhabited systems." "Then change the regulations," Valerie countered. She retrieved her data recorder. 3 months of documentation, proof of interspecies communication, problem-solving capabilities, emotional intelligence. Rex isn't just a predator. She's a person. A non-human person with every right to protection under Sentient Species Conservation Act. The scientific team that had accompanied the rescue mission crowded forward, fascinated by the footage playing on Valerie's device. "This is unprecedented," one scientist murmured. "The implications for xenobiology are staggering. I'm not leaving without her," Valerie stated firmly. "The planet was mining her species to extinction. She's the last one. Where I go, she goes." Hargrove sighed, recognizing the determination in her eyes. "We'll need containment protocols, special transport, arrangements, mountains of paperwork. We've been containing ourselves quite effectively for 3 months, Valerie replied, reaching out to place a hand on Rex's foreleg. The massive predator lowered her head, bringing those obsidian eyes level with Valerie's. "Haven't we, girl?" Rex made the grinding stones sound the